Guys, I have something I need to admit. I don't think I would consider myself a gamer anymore. Video games used to be one of my biggest passions as a child and a young teenager, but lately I just haven't felt the same love as I once did for the art form, and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because I've just grown disenchanted with the current state of gaming as of late, and how difficult and how overly pricey it can be to just get your hands on a game you're interested in. It's all about specs and having the best setup and the correct frame rate, and I can no longer just sit down and enjoy a fun little playable adventure. The last console I've ever owned was a fucking Wii U. Do you guys even remember what a Wii U is? Yeah, apparently it's 10 years old. What the fuck? It feels like yesterday when I got scammed into buying Sonic Boom. Yeah, I'm one of the 3 people that bought Sonic Boom. Sorry. But, despite all this, there's still a part of me that wishes I could go back. Back to the old days in 2010 where I would just lay down on my tiny ass bed and play Scholar on the PS2 without a care in the world. Where I would spend hours with my cousins having fun with those 1,000 games in one CD thingies from the late 2000s on grandma's barely working Windows XP computer. And one of the only ways I can scratch this itch, aside from actually doing what I just said verbatim, is by playing indie games. There is something about indie titles that just makes me so much happier than big AAA ones. I like them so much I've actually done a few ones myself already. The June season, Cure for Apathy, all my FNAF fan games. I've been doing games since 2014. One of my first videos on this channel was a trailer for a very shitty platformer I made called Homer in Video Game Land. The full game was lost media for the longest time, though I finally found it last year, and it's one of the most batshit insane things I've ever done. I'll leave a link in the description if you're curious. But yeah, I'm here to talk about one specific indie game that brings back a ton of memories. It's not the deepest game of all time or anything, or the most meaningful, or the most emotional for that matter, but it means so goddamn much to me for reasons I'll get into. I've been going through a lot lately, and as fucking corny as it might sound, I'm glad this silly little game I'm about to talk about exists, to remind me of when things weren't so sour and dark and depressing for me. So, without further ado, here's the game. I don't think I've ever been this excited to talk about a game before. Let's fucking go! Yeah, insaniquarium deluxe. This game is the most beautiful and precious thing in this whole damn world, and I will die on this hill. Insaniquarium belongs to PopCap, the company behind Plants vs. Zombies and Peggle. And you can really tell because this game has a lot of PopCap tropes. Super easy gameplay, colorful graphics, and little to no story. The premise of this game is ridiculously simple. All you have to do is take care of your little fishies. They will grow, expel money out of their ass, which you'll have to collect until you make enough coins to buy this little egg on the corner and go to the next level. Each egg gives you a different mascot, which work as optional add-ons to help you throughout your playthrough. Things get a bit more complicated though when motherfucking aliens start to pop up unannounced on your tank, which you'll have to destroy using laser guns. Yeah, there are many different fishies and tanks and aliens and mascots all over the game, and there's this big creepy alien fight at the end with this fucker called Cyrex, and that's it, that's a game. There's like an infinite aquarium mode where you can put fishies in and they don't ever die, and it's very cute and charming. And in PopCap fashion, there's also a few extra modes if you're really going for that 100% completion, but like, that's it. There's really not all that much to this game. It's a very casual sort of title. There's not a whole lot going on. What you see is what you get. It's so simplistic, yet so genius. I don't think I've ever seen a game so simple and so effective before or since. It's stripped down to the fundamentals of video games themselves. It's essentially just a bunch of interactive elements on the screen, and yet it's more than enough to make this super addictive and entertaining. If the game introduced more things, it would feel off and weird, which you don't want because it gets a bit more overwhelming and complex at times, especially in the last few levels. And like, seriously, I think I love every single stylistic decision made on this game to some extent. The art style of the entire game is super cute and colorful without being overbearing at all. I can see why 8-year-old me loved the shit out of it. The gameplay, as I mentioned before, is super simple and easy to understand, so you're not constantly racking your brain while playing, plus it's very trim in length. You can complete this game in a few hours if you put some thought into it. The soundtrack is absolutely beautiful, especially the credit song, Lullaby, which you might recognize if you follow my videos because it popped up in here, Into the Void. It's a super gorgeous little synth ditty that always manages to just calm me down instantly. It's honestly just a very relaxing song. And the rest of the soundtrack is also filled with highlights like it. Again, I'm not really a gamer girl anymore, so I don't really listen to video game soundtracks in my free time. I listen to real music. But this is one of the few exceptions. Yeah, every single aspect of this game is executed perfectly in my opinion. And you might be thinking,
but Blinder, is this casual-ass game with no story really your favorite game of all time?
And like, yeah man, for realsies. In this dark-ass world filled with suffering, corruption and intruders, this sunshiny-ass game about fishies and aliens is one of the few things that keeps me going. Well, not really, but I do think my life is a little bit better because it exists. And that's why I can overlook some of its apparent flaws. And I mean, it's not like my other all-time favorites are much deeper than this one. Rayman 3, my second favorite game of all time. It has a story, but it's not necessarily deep or anything, it's more gameplay focused, I would say. Minecraft has tiny remnants of a story, but there's barely anything to it, and it's arguably one of the best video games of the fucking millennium despite this. What I'm trying to say is, video games don't need to be deep for people to have a positive emotional response to them. I mean, don't get me wrong, it works at times, but it's genuinely not that important. I don't ask for too much when it comes to games. Just give me cool graphics and gameplay and that should be enough to keep my ass entertained for a little bit. And that's why I tend to be a bit mean to bad games in this show. Aside from being comedic, I just don't think it's that difficult to make a fun game. You don't need to make an industry-shaking masterpiece to be great, and I think people who love Insaniquarium as much as I do would agree. This game is fucking amazing, and it's about fishies. About fucking fishies, you know what I mean? Like, it's so simple, but so good at the same time. Fishies, dude. Fucking fishies. There's so much love for this game, even to this day, despite how obscure it is in the grand scheme of things. Seriously, this game is like tip of my joystick core. I've played tons of different hacks and mods and even fan games of Insaniquarium over the years, and okay, this is gonna be a bit of a tangent, but it's very interesting, so hear me out. So, there used to be this website from Argentina called InsaWeb. It's been taken down, but it's still available on the Wayback Machine, and it was dedicated to documenting a ton of different fan creations for the game, and one of them was a fan-made sequel called Insaniquarium 2, which was a reskin of this terrible-looking, hyper-obscure game called Fishco. This fan sequel essentially changed most of the graphics of this Fishco game to the cute and friendly art style of the OG Insaniquarium. It's honestly one of the weirdest things I've ever played, but it's so beautiful and strange and fucking cool. Are you still with me? Okay, listen. Fucking guess what? Here's something that will blow your mind. This super random fan-made sequel for the super random game had Leave Out All the Rest by Linkin Park as the menu music. And This was literally the first Linkin Park song I've ever heard, and I recall it was the first time I ever truly fell in love with a piece of music in my life. This band would go on to influence me into making my own music career, and if it wasn't for this menu screen, there's a chance I would have never even heard of them to begin with. So in the wildest turn of events, Insaniquarium fucking Deluxe gave me a musical career. It's the reason I discovered Linkin Park, a band I would fall in love with, which would in turn awake my passion for music. Oh my god! Okay, check this out. If you search for insaniquarium on Spotify, you will find this playlist, and you will find this playlist, various tracks used in the hit game insaniquarium Deluxe. The fucking Venom song is here. Oh god. Five Nights at Freddy's. So fucking Soldier Boy is apparently on the soundtrack. So yeah, the more you know. Though Insaniquarium Deluxe was published by PopCap, the game itself was developed and designed by one single person, George Fan. He's a game designer who's worked on a few hit games over his career. Insaniquarium began as nothing more than a 2001 Java game, which was conceptualized by George as, and I quote, a game that's easy to get into, yet unfolds into something much deeper. The game would get picked up by PopCap the following year, and he would begin to work on a fuller, more complete PC version of the game, which he finished in 2004. That's why there's a deluxe in the game's title, if you were wondering. It's a deluxe of the Java version. It became one of the company's biggest hits financially speaking actually, with 20 million copies sold, which is crazy to think about nowadays, because the game seems quite obscure despite its commercial success at the time. Here's a really fun fact. George Fan would start development on an official Insaniquarium Deluxe sequel in 2009, featuring a tower defense gameplay mechanic, where the fishies would have to destroy the aliens so they wouldn't get inside their tank. Does that sound familiar to you? That's right, Insaniquarium Deluxe 2 became Plants vs. Zombies, arguably the biggest PopCap game, and a top 20 favorite of mine on its own right. It's just so weird to think this super fun, legendary title started out as a sequel to my favorite game of all time. Hell, it was even called insaniquarium for a little bit. I've been dying for a sequel to Insaniquarium for over a decade now, and it was almost a thing. There's gotta be a different timeline or dimension somewhere where this game exists for real. As a reference to Insaniquarium, there's a challenge in the Plants vs. Zombies extras where the fishies turn into zombies. It's honestly kinda cute. Has George done anything else? Well, yes he has. His latest game is called Octogeddon. It was released in 2018 and it's a fun little arcade style title. It features his addictive gameplay style and cutesy artwork. It's oddly reminiscent of Insaniquarium in a few aspects, I would say, and I guess that's because there's a nautical, watery vibe to it, though the Plants vs. Zombies influence is a lot more noticeable, which is understandable. I mean, it's his biggest game after all. I think this is the first time I've ever done a video on a game I enjoy. Basically, all of my gaming videos have been either slightly neutral or negative in spirit, but I'm glad I've broken that curse today, at least for this video. Like a lot of my all-time favorites, Insaniquarium Deluxe is a game I truly love with all my heart, but I fear it's an oddly irrational sort of love, one I can't really put into words properly, no matter how long or complicated this video gets. I just have a super deep emotional attachment to this game and for what it represents in my life. It's the same reason why I played through Rayman 3 about a dozen times. It's the reason why Your Fucking Reality from the DLC is one of my most streamed songs of all time. It's the reason why I've made 1 trillion videos about FNAF. And it's the reason why I wanna get an Insaniquarium Deluxe tattoo one day. It all comes down to emotional attachment, as I said before. This thing I like means a lot to me on a purely sentimental level, and it transcends the barriers of video games in general. It could be a middle-of-the-road game, and I'd still be into it if I felt a connection to it. And I know it seems very silly and dumb and corny, but I can't fight my feelings. This game makes me very nostalgic for the past because I first started playing it when I was a child. It takes me back to simpler times. I tend to be very sentimental with most of the art I consume, and games are no exception, despite how disenchanted and distant I've grown with them over the years. My all time favorites will always be there to comfort me in a way, and I think that's kinda beautiful in a cringy way. Yeah, and that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, everybody.